Welcome to this episode of Beyond the Barclay with me, Jez Davies. This week I'm joined with Rosi Webb. Hi Rosie, how are you?
Hi Jez, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Just for the audience, if you'd just like to explain who you are, what you do for a living, etc.
My name's Rosi Webb. I'm a coach developer at the Women's FA High Performance Centre, and in my spare time I am the current manager at Stanway Pegasus men's team.
Yep, great. And how does that? So obviously there is a link to Norwich City. This is a Norwich City podcast. What's your link to Norwich City?
First of all, knowing you, probably one of the biggest Norwich fans I know. So that would probably be the first one. And then the second one would be, as the Women's High Performance Centre, which is situated in the east, Norwich Women is one of the teams that we look to support in on the grass.
That's great. So what other clubs within the region do you support?
In terms of the support we offer, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. Am I allowed to say Ipswich?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, that is a word that's generally banned on this podcast. But yeah, you fire away. Yeah.
I promise I won't say it again after that one time then. So yeah, Colchester, we go as far down to the London clubs. So some of the clubs that we're in are Arsenal. We look to support within the ETC, so Peterborough as well. So the region's quite big that we cover, all the way down to Charlton as well. So they're just a few of the clubs that we touch base with within that role.
Fantastic. I mean, we'll probably revisit that later then. So, but just obviously a few questions from me. What's been the biggest challenge you've faced as a female manager in the men's game, and how have you overcome that?
I think for me, the first part was personally for me stepping into that environment to begin with all those years ago. So it's probably about 4 or 5 years ago now that I stepped in to coach within the men's game. And I think at the time no one else was in that space. So I didn't have anyone to really look up to or inspire me in that environment. But it was very difficult at the beginning. But I've kind of grown into it, and it's an experience over the last couple of years that's definitely made me a better coach. It always has its challenges, over the years you do unfortunately you are on the receiving end of some horrible stuff that's being said, but you learn to grow thick skin. And I think especially within the league that I'm managing in now, a lot of the coaches and the clubs know who I am, and they're really respectful of the stuff that we're doing. But that's earned over the years in the respect of turning up week in, week out with a side that we look to compete every year. So I'd like to think that over the years I've gained respect from fellow coaches in the league and clubs that we come up against.
Fantastic. And I mean, could you give us some examples of perhaps some of that abuse that you received, and how, perhaps how you dealt with it at the time?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, it's your usual stuff of women belonging in the kitchen, and, it's stuff like that now, which is like water off a duck's back. And, thankfully at the time when it happened, the club in question dealt with it in a speedy manner, and the player that said it didn't play for that club again. So, you have those little things. But I always think that when you're in football and you're doing well, there's a lot of people that want to try and knock you down. And I think sometimes those little comments are probably there to try and test you a little bit, and they certainly made me stronger. So I try not to home in on those silly comments, because then it's a minority view, right? Not everybody thinks that way. I like to think that they don't.
No, especially. Sorry, Karen.
No, go on.
I was going to say, especially the club you're currently at, Stanway Pegasus, that placed a club that play at a decent level, right? But they placed an enormous amount of trust in your abilities to go and manage that team. Yeah,
exactly. So I've got a duty of care to the club, but most of all, a duty of care to the players. And, we always try and conduct ourselves in a way that is professional, especially personally. I think sometimes the worst thing to do is react. Yeah. You've kind of got to ignore it, because you've got to remember you're there for the players more than anything. And, I don't want it to become about me, especially in those game moments where people have those views. We've got a game to play, and I want the players to win the game and enjoy the game. I'm not going to let it overshine by some of the comments that are made on match day.
No, great. I mean, so the club Stanway Pegasus is based in Colchester, right? What level are they at in the football pyramid, and what sort of clubs do you play? Sort of particularly, do you play any clubs in Norfolk or that region?
Yeah, we play Step 6 and we play quite a few teams in Norfolk. So we play this. We go as far as Leiston under 23s,
Yeah.
Dussondow. They both play out of the Nest.
Yeah.
So spent a couple of games up at the Nest this season, which is always nice. It's a nice ground there. They got the 4G and they've just built another one next to it. So great facilities that some of these teams at this level especially are getting access to now.
Yeah, I think you touched on the Nest there. I think an asset that was built by the Community Sports Foundation that's linked to Norwich City. Just talk, cause I know you spent a lot of time up there recently. Just talk about that project up there, and some of the people that you've met and who what that facility is all about, really.
Yeah, so I remember going to the Nest probably 2 seasons ago where they had just the one AstroTurf, and even then it was an amazing place to go. And I always compare it to almost like a mini St George's Park,
Okay.
which is great to have in a region like Norwich, because we know that Norwich is a little bit out of the way, but equally players, whether it be youth or adults, should have the opportunity to experience those type of facilities, not just because they live in areas like Norwich. So it's great that that's at the heart of the community. I've been up there a lot this season because I'm supporting a coach called Flo Allen, who's just is in the middle of completing her B licence.
Right.
So part of my job role is to go out and support them on the grass, because as you know, with any qualification, on-course delivery is just a small part of the course. Actually, a lot more of where you're learning and experiences happen is when you're back at club and you're delivering to your players. Yeah. So I've been down there to support Flo, and I'm looking to be back in the new year to support Norwich Girls ETC and some of the coaches working within that. So it's a place that I love to go because the people there are always friendly. They're always open to support, and they want to provide the best football in the area for the youth. So yeah, I love going there. It's a nice feel, a good feel. If you haven't been down to the Nest, I definitely recommend going. You can go there. They've got a nice little cafe. You can just go have a little hot chocolate, coffee, and enjoy some football, because there's always football being played up there.
As you know, I love a coffee, so I'll be straight down there. So yeah, I mean, talk to us a little bit about a couple of things. So first of all, Flo Allen is currently general manager of the Norwich City Girls and Ladies project, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Talk to us a little bit about Flo, and if you're able to, about her coaching style, and whether how her role at Norwich City is vitally important.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow the women's game, and especially in that area, Norwich in the last couple of seasons have really ramped up what their provision is. And, Flo's been a massive part of that. She's come in and she's really passionate about driving the women's game. She used to play, so she understands the game really well. And now she's going along, taking her coaching qualifications. And when I watch Flo, as a coach developer, I always ask myself, if I was a player in that session, would I want to be playing in that session? And every time I watch Flo, that's exactly a tick of the box. Yeah, I would. I'd love to be a player in her session. I think she's very calm on the pitch, but she's very knowledgeable. She's one of these coaches that will go in, she'll drop a little bit of information, and she'll step back out and let the players figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy going down there, and she's a great coach if she chooses to go down that route. Equally, she likes all the operations behind the scenes. So I'll be excited to see where Flo ends up in a couple of years, because she's definitely got a bright future ahead of her in the female game, whether that's on or off the pitch. So yeah, watch that space.
Fantastic, thank you. And then how do you feel clubs like Norwich benefit from the role that you do as a coach developer?
I like to think that they benefit in terms of where they are in the region. I think that they'll be the first to admit at times over the years they get missed off a little bit because they're out the way. But it's really important for me that there's some really great coaches down in Norwich, especially within the girls section. So it's important for me to get down there, work with them, and try and support them on the grass to be even better than what they are. And like I said, in the new year, I'll be going in to support the ETC. There's another good coach in there called Summer, who's come through the Powerhouse project. If you're not familiar with that, have a little look. But yeah, she's a coach that's come through again, another young, exciting coach that has huge potential. But we need to make sure that as coach developers that we're there with them on the grass and we're giving them the support that they need.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about getting female coaches into the game, but actually for me, the important thing is keeping those coaches in the game. And how do we do that? Well, we've got to get out, we've got to get on the grass, we've got to support them, we've got to show them that they've got a network of coach developers that can support them and push them onto that next level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you sort of, on that note, how do you approach coaching men's and women's teams differently? And if it is a thing where it's different, and what key lessons have you brought from one side to the other?
Yeah, I think there are some differences, but I also think that there's a lot of similarities. At the end of the day, people are people, and it's always the person before the player for me, whether that's male or female. So that doesn't change in terms of who's in front of me. Some of the things I've learned and I feel that I've brought to the game is when I first came into this environment, especially at this level, I don't know if the word on the sideline is it's quite an aggressive environment at times. And that's not a criticism. I think that's just the way the game is. It's played at a very high tempo. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of passionate people. And sometimes it can be an environment where I noticed when I first started, a lot of shouting going on at the sidelines from managers and coaches, but with not a lot of substance. Yeah. And I was really keen that when I come into this environment, I didn't want to become a product of the environment. I wanted to make sure that, you know, when you're shouting stuff out at players, it has to be with real substance that they can then go on and use and try and change the game if you're up against it. And I think for me, that calming aspect on the sideline where you can, when everything else, you're in that moment and everything else is very hostile, can you really home in on, right, this is a task. How can I change the game? How can I help my players to make sure that we win that game? And I think that's something that I try to bring into the men's game that we do in the female game a little bit more. So that's probably one of the biggest things. I think, like I said, there's a lot of similarities. I know we can't escape the physical element of the game. That's always going to be different. But in terms of people, we learn in different ways, and that's the same. And how can I get the best out of the players? And I think that's transferable across the men and the male game, the male and the female game.
No, definitely. And then wanted to talk a little bit about your experience as a player. And I know that you used to play for Tottenham, which as an Arsenal fan must have been difficult. How did that experience of playing for Tottenham shape your philosophy as a coach and a manager?
Yeah, I mean, I started football quite late in terms of joining a team. And I think that was probably representation of what life in the female game looked like all those years ago. Yeah. So I didn't actually come into playing until I was about 14. That's when I first joined a team. Up until then, my experience of football was over the park with my brothers. Yeah. We'd play Wembley singles. You'd be out there all day until you either got knocked out or your mum would come shouting over the field for you to come home for dinner. Yeah. That was my experience of football at the time. And I think when I first I wish that I could have got involved in football a lot earlier because I think I probably would have learnt a lot more. But I wouldn't change that experience. And I think as the years went on, I played at Tottenham. I went over to Charlton. I came back. Yeah. All those managers that I played under or those coaches that I was exposed to, probably a little bit of them lives in me now in one way or another.
Of course.
And I try and take little bits from everybody that I come across and especially when I've played of what I really liked, but also as well, some of the things that I didn't like as a player so that I make sure that I don't do that because I think that's important as players. Like when you're in sessions and you're playing, like it's enjoyable. That's why we turn up. That's why we go to football is because we want to have fun and we want to enjoy it. So I think a lot of experiences as a player has shaped the coach that I've become. And even when I'm out watching coaches, whether it be on a visit for a qualification or I'm just supporting them on the grass, I always try and take a little bit from their session and go away with, right, what did I learn from them today? Because I think it's important that you know, we can always learn something from someone, no matter where we are in the world.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then sort of just moving on, what advice would you give to other women who aspire to work in roles traditionally dominated by men, like managing men's teams?
I think go and give it a go. I think just be brave. That's probably my biggest bit of advice is just be brave. Go out there, give it a go. It might be for you, it might not. And if it is, great. really embrace the challenge in the environment. And if it's not for you, at least you've given it a go. And I think that's the important thing, that, you know, you can do it. It is out there. Just because you're female doesn't mean you can't manage a male team. And it works the other way round as well. So go out there, be brave and give it a go.
No, definitely. And I mean, I think there was the big thing in the summer, wasn't there, with the Forest Green? Was it this summer or last summer, where the Forest Green manager got the boot, didn't he, sort of midway through the pre-season? And then the lady's name escapes me now, but she went in and managed the team during pre-season.
Yeah, and I think moments like that, although it's only for a couple of games, they're inspirational situations where actually it's in the press, it's on Sky Sports News, like people can see it happening, so they can believe that they can achieve it. And I think it's important that we create a few more opportunities like that, and moments where, you know, there are females working in the male game, and we probably do need a few more of them before we start seeing more female coaches being brave to take that step into the male game.
Yeah. No, I think it's massively important. I mean, obviously been loosely involved in the ladies' game over the last few years as a manager in the lower leagues in Hertfordshire. You know, I've seen more and more ladies step out into management. Some that were players of, you know, teams that I faced, and I think it's brilliant. I think it's excellent to see, you know, the amount of, especially over the last few years, it seems to have skyrocketed. I think, do you think that might, the England's team performance, you know, what the FA places in terms of importance for women's football, do you think that might have something to do with that?
Oh, I think it's massive. I think after the Euros, female players could see that they could achieve something special and great. Yeah. And that got more players into the game. And what it allowed was a platform for coach development to get more female coaches into the game as well, because we'd started to see that, you know, there are more female coaches at the top end and they are achieving great stuff. Now, how can we, number one, get these female coaches in the game, but number two, how can we keep them there? What sort of initiatives can we put out there where we're out there and we're supporting these coaches that are already in the game, pushing them to the next level and giving them a support network that they can rely on and feel that they've got a safe environment where they can coach, they can make mistakes, and we keep them in the game and they don't fall out of the game later on because they've had bad experiences.
No, I think that's massively important. And then sort of moving back to your current role with Stanway Pegasus, what has been your sort of priorities in building a team culture there, and how do you foster mutual respect and trust from the players?
Yeah, I think it was important when I first come in. The club was growing. We've moved on 4 years and we've doubled the amount of teams, and, you know, the senior section have grown, and we've managed fantastic in terms of building the female game. We've managed to start a women's first team. We had some great success in that. So we then went on to launch a women's reserve side. So it's really important for me that when I came in, I didn't just want to be a coach in a team. I wanted to create a culture within the club that if the kids are under sevens, both boys and girls, could see it happening at the top, then they could believe that they could achieve it, and they'd probably stay with our club a lot longer. So I really wanted to create a pathway and a sense of belonging for not just for the kids, but also the coaches to see that, you know what, in 5-6 years time, why can't I be managing the men's team, or why can't I be managing the women's team? That we've got a clear pathway both for the players, but also more importantly for the coaches. And that comes over time. You build a culture over time, and they're little things that you embed. You can't go into a club and change everything overnight, because you just won't succeed. And it's little bits that you start implementing, and, you know, you get buy-in from the players. And I'm really lucky with the crop of players that I've got. It's a very open-minded club. Yeah. We are very diverse in what we do in terms of growing the club, both the male and the female side. Yeah. But that takes time and that takes trust. You know, I've got to prove myself to the players. Respect isn't gained overnight. You've got to earn respect, and it works for me to earn the respect of the players, but also the players to earn the respect from me. And, you know, that took time, and, you know, we built that over a couple of years, and, you know, we've been on this journey together for such a long time that actually when new players come in, and we've got this great culture where players can come into us, they'll improve as a player, but they also have to buy into our culture. And if they don't buy into our culture, they won't survive at our club. And, you know, and I think that's really important, that I'm not there now shouting about our culture and our environment. The players do it for me, because it's just become normality But again, it takes time, it takes a lot of dedicated people to build that culture.
No, absolutely. And I know last season you did quite well, didn't you? Just talk us through last season.
Yeah, so I mean, if we go back 4 years ago, I came in as coach. I then got offered the manager's job, and in the first season, it was really special to me because we went unbeaten.
Yes.
And done the double, and that for me it's very difficult. Any league, anywhere in any country, to go unbeaten for 40 games is difficult. It's a very hard task to do, and we managed to do that, so that was special. So we then got promoted, and in our first season, our ambition was to compete. It weren't to win the league. We needed to get in, we needed to get settled, but we managed to find ourselves in the playoffs. We got to the playoff final. Brilliant. We then lost on penalties. Yep. And then brings us to last season. Again, we got to the playoffs. We lost in the semis of the playoffs. We just weren't there or thereabouts. So we went away from that last season, changed a fair bit off of the pitch, looked at ways that I could improve and I could improve the team. And, we fast forward to this season where we're sitting third. There's some great teams in that league. I think it's going to go all the way to the wire this season. And, when you're working with a team and you throw in all the cup games, you're looking at a 50-game season, which is a very, very long season for players that are not full-time. And most of these men have trade jobs where they're up at 4 a.m. So we have to manage our players in a way that we can manage expectations, but also try and get the best out of our players.
No, yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think that probably leads into the next question quite well for not only the players, but also yourself. I mean, with obviously so many roles and responsibilities, how do you maintain a balance between your personal life and your professional commitments in football?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult. It's funny because my stepdad always says to me, "Oh, you're obsessed with the game," and at first I used to sit there and think, "Oh God, I am." But now I look at it and I think if you're not obsessed with what you do, you're not going to make it to the top. Of course. So you have to make those sacrifices, and you have to. When I'm not coaching, I'm probably sitting here watching the game, and if I'm not watching the game, I'm still playing a little bit, and I've got a good group of people around me, and their interests of football as well. So it becomes very easy in terms of not being able to escape it. But yeah, I'm obsessed with it, and I need to be obsessed with it if I want to make it to the top. I think it's true what they say: if you want to be a top athlete, there's no days off, right? And I don't think that's any different to coaching.
No, and you're always learning as well, aren't you? I mean, I think you mentioned St George's Park earlier. I would assume you've been up there as well to perhaps on sort of like development days and stuff.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time up there with our job role, and it's an amazing facility, and it exposes these top athletes to the best facilities in the world. But it also allows the community to go in and use those facilities as well, which is amazing. And that's why I like the Nest so much, because it does remind me of when I go up there. It's like being at St George's Park. It's really friendly. It's got a buzz about it. There's that community feel. There's loads of different teams coming in and coming out. I mean, when I was up there last, I think there was a police game going on against another police station. So that was great to see as well. That actually they do really try and embed their community within what they're doing, even though it might have a Norwich badge on it. It's open to so many different teams and so many different walks of life that can come in and use it, which is great to see.
Yeah, I think it's certainly something that I've always seen to be a really big community asset, and something that Norwich City should be extremely proud of what they've achieved with that. And there's not many clubs. I mean, I've worked with Stevenage Football Club previously, and they had quite a good community project there. But I mean, the Nest is something else, isn't it?
Oh, it's unbelievable. And it's like anything. If you don't have a culture, you don't have a sense of belonging. Everyone wants to feel like they belong somewhere, and you go to places like this where they have a great environment, they got the facilities, that's great. But if you don't have the culture, you don't have the buy-in from the staff, that great facility becomes a little bit lost, because it doesn't have that community feel to it. No. And like I said, Norwich have done that really, really well.
No, fantastic. So just moving on, last couple of questions from me. I guess what for women's football, what changes have you noticed, and since your playing days, and what do you still think needs to improve?
The biggest one for me is opportunities. I think I remember when I started playing, there was very few teams in the community in my local area. I grew up in London, so in London it's quite a close little city where you only have to get on the tube and you can go to your local team, or you walk down the road now. That never used to be a thing, and I think the most important thing is, like, we're giving every child the opportunity to access football wherever they are in the country, and I think that's so important that we give the youth of today, with everything that's going on, with the world that we're living in, that they can see that, they only have to walk outside their door and probably go 10 minutes down the road and there's a club that they can join. And I think that's probably the biggest change that I've seen. I think we've still got a little way to go in terms of female coaching. There's some great initiatives out there, like what we do in terms of supporting coaches in the female game. The Powerhouse project that I'm involved in is massive. But I think we still need to continue to support these female coaches when we're in the game and push them towards opportunities that they'd probably not feel that they could apply for or go for in the past. And we need to just keep empowering these female coaches. So, I think opportunities was the biggest one. And I think we just got to keep trying to give as much support to these female coaches and opportunities within the coaching world as well.
I think the work that Sky do as well, or have done over the last couple of seasons, showing the WSL games when football became big in the 90s, when the Premier League sort of came into existence in the men's game, Sky did a job there to make sure that, football was available for all, in terms of obviously watching the game. And I think they're kind of mirroring that a little bit with the ladies' game. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think what the women's game does really well, and I hope it stays and it isn't something that we change, is when I go to a women's game, it's got a family feel to it. Yeah. You look across and you've got parents taking their sons and their daughters to the game, and it's a real family feel. Whereas sometimes traditionally in the past, when you go to a men's game, it's normally a group of men, they meet in the pub beforehand, they then go to the game, and there's a lot of drinking culture that's involved in there, and it's a whole day thing. You don't really, traditionally you don't see many families. I think that's changing, and that has changed. But the female game are really good at it. The bits that they do before the game on the pitch, lots of opportunity for kids to come and get involved outside the ground. Yeah. And just nice to see an event where you can actually take a whole family, have a good day out, and it's not going to cost you loads and loads of money. The tickets are reasonably priced that you can take a whole family to a game and not feel that you're massively out of pocket for it. And also, as well, more importantly, you're going to watch a good game of football, because especially at the Super League, the level of football is really, really good. So it's an all-round great experience for the family, which sometimes you don't get in the men's game.
No, absolutely. That's a fair assessment. So finally, Rosie, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, and what would you like your legacy to be in both the men's and women's games?
First of all, I love what I do in terms of my full-time role. I love working with people and I love working with coaches. That's a passion of mine. I like to see coaches doing well, and I like to feel that I've been a part of their journey in one way or another. But I would like to see myself full-time in the game, whether that be in the male or female game. If the right opportunity came up, I'd consider either or. But ultimately, I want to work at the top. I want to be at the top of the game. Yeah. And over the years, I've worked really, really hard, and I'll continue to work hard to improve myself as a coach and a manager. At some point, I think the right opportunity might come up. I'm not in a rush for it. I'm patient. I understand it's not about the end destination. It's about the process that I'm going through. Yeah. And I've learned loads over the last 4 years, and I'm really hoping over the next couple of seasons I can really, really grasp it a little bit more. And who knows what might happen in the future.
No, I think you're right. And I mean, obviously I've known you for probably the best part of 10 years now, since you came in and did those, curver coaching at Luton, wasn't it?
That was, 10. Is that 10 years? You're making me feel old, Jez.
It's crazy, isn't it? I can't believe it. I don't know where them 10 years ago. It might not be 10 years, but I think it's probably not far off. And, I've clearly followed your career very closely, we've kept in touch, haven't we? And I'm so proud of what you've done and what you've achieved in both formats of the game. And I wish you all the best. And it really wouldn't surprise me if we talked again in 5-10 years time and you'd reach those goals. So yeah, keep at it, mate.
Oh, thanks, Jez. I really appreciate that.
No worries. And just finally then, so have you kept in touch much with Val Norwich, like the men's Norwich team are doing this season?
No, I can't say I have. So maybe you can just fill me in a little bit.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, it's a mixed bag at the moment. So we've got a new manager, new way of thinking with a new sporting directors coming as well, by the name of Ben Napper. He was actually at Arsenal for a bit.
Yep, I recognise the name.
Yeah, he's come in tail end of last season, changed the philosophy a little bit, changed the way of thinking. It's very data led now. But we've again, bad luck with injuries, bad luck with a few suspensions knocking around as well, and it's been inconsistent. I mean, there are 4 home games which we've won, which have been 4-1, 4-0, 6-2, I think it was.
Oh wow.
No, hang on. Well, no, it wasn't. 6-1. And yeah, anyway, so we've had 4 games where we've absolutely battered teams, and then we go away to QPR the other week and lose 3-0, who are second bottom of the league. So yeah, real mixed bag, but who knows? I mean, as I say, if you're ever up in the area, just let me know and we can perhaps go to a game or something.
Yeah, no, I'd definitely like that. So my question to you then, to finish off with, would be, what does success look like for Norwich this season?
Well, for me, it's working towards the new plan, the new way of thinking. So it would be finding the consistency first and foremost, because at the moment that's just not there. But working towards a plan ready for next season, to then have a bit of a go at it. Because I don't think this year is where we are necessarily going to do that. I think it's going to be the following season. So again, it's a bit more of a long-term project here at Norwich. So yeah, that would be my answer to that one. I think, yeah, a little bit more consistency, but also working towards that. Yeah, the long-term project, I suppose.
And you got Jack Wilshere over there now, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. He joined us a couple of months ago, I think. So yeah, well, as you know, he was at Arsenal as well. I mean, a lot of Norwich fans will know Jack Wilshere, but just talk to us about him as a player.
I remember Jack Wilshere as a player, and he was up there with one of favourite players of all time for Arsenal. And I think it was because when he first hit the scene, it was a new era of centre mids where they stayed on the ball, they got up players, they were pleasing to watch.
Yeah.
And then he was just struck by injury after injury after injury, and I feel bad for him in terms of a player, because I feel like we never really got to see a consistent Jack Wilshere just because he was hit by so many injuries. But what I like is the fact that he's now pursued a coaching career. So we've not exactly lost him from the game. He's moved over into a coaching role, and I know that he was in at Arsenal and he got tapped up by the mighty Norwich. So yeah, I'm really hoping he's got a bright future ahead of him in coaching, because I really feel like he was a player that, you know, we didn't really ever get to see the best of him at times because he was always hit by injuries.
No, I completely agree. That would be my memory of him as a player. I think we always look back at a goal that he scored against Norwich, funnily enough. And you may know the goal I'm talking about, where I think Olivier Giroud was involved as well, and there's been about 3 or 4 passes, and the Norwich defenders are just stood there like statues.
And I remember that goal. As soon as Jack Wilshere got announced at Norwich, I think that goal was trending.
Yes.
Because you know what they like. They like to remind teams of the coaches gaining. So
absolutely.
Hopefully he can have a big impact over at Norwich.
I hope so. Rosie, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. As I said earlier on, best of luck with everything. Do keep in touch. Do keep listening to the pod as well. It's very informative.
Yeah, I will do. Don't worry.
And just for everyone else listening, you can follow us on all of our social media channels, which is Facebook, Instagram, and X. We are available on all social media channels, including Facebook, X, and Instagram. Thanks for listening, and tune in soon.